Hi there. My name is Melissa Mifflin, and I'm going to talk to you all today about my take on The Girl with the Brown Crayon by Vivian Gussin Paley and how it relates to action research. Okay. So the story, The Girl with the Brown Crayon, was written by Vivian Gussin Paley. And in this story, it starts off with this little girl, Leoni, who's very aware of the color of her skin, and she also has self-awareness. She uses a brown crayon and presses lightly to draw pictures. Vivian Gussin Paley reads the story by Leoni called Frederick in our class, and the kids are captivated by the dynamics between Frederick and the different mice, his friends. Then she reads a story called Tico and the Golden Wings by the same author. While they're doing this, the children are relating to the characters, comparing the characters, and creating these posters. So then Vivian Gussin Paley gets an idea and she speaks to her assistant, Nisha Rupel Sen, and says, hey, what do you think about the idea of reading multiple books by the same author? So since the students were very captured by Leoni, possibly doing a year-long book study with different books and comparing the books to each other and to how they relate to relationships. And Nisha was very supportive of this idea. Here's a quote from the book. The choice of the new Leoni book is fairly random, but we study each one in the same way. We read the book almost to the point of memorizing it, then dramatize, paint, and discuss its finer points, comparing new characters to those we already know and to those in other books as well. The characters enter our stories, our play, and our ordinary conversations. Something I noticed about the way Paley uses her classroom is that her classroom environment, the kids are open to responding to the story. So on the left-hand side, we see what we would think in a pre-K classroom with all the children sitting cross-legged and the teacher reading the story and the children listening. On the right side, it's more of a dynamic classroom. The children contribute. Along with this story time, there's also what I would consider a safe place for children to escape. So children are not made to sit down. They can join the group if they would like to. If not, and they need to escape to a quieter corner of the room, they're able to do that as well. And there's a little boy that ends up going into this one area of the classroom to kind of escape the situation that's going on. And so she has a classroom where that is welcome. Throughout the book study, the children have this more heightened self-awareness. They are understanding their own strengths, and then also the individuality was discussed. The connections were made from book to book, and then also from book to self. Here's a little about the methodology that was used in the book with Vivian Gussin Paley. They were improving on classroom practice by trying something different. So the idea of reading numerous books by one author was not really something that was done. And so this was something that she thought might help improve the classroom. She did observations, informal interviews with her assistant, questioning, and then also she conducted research in the library about the author and then different books. And this was a participatory pedagogical research involving teachers, students, and parents. So it was not necessarily a transmissive or like the normal stereotypical research done in universities or in labs. It was more dynamic, and it was something that the teacher was doing in her classroom with her students. How she presented the data. There were informal conversations that she had about her findings with the assistant and parents. Also, the classroom did collective posters that were hung on the wall, and there were conversations with participants. Something in the Mertler book on action research, instead of triangulation, they use the word polyangulation of data. And this was taking different forms of data to kind of come to a cohesive understanding of what was going on. And these were some of the ways that I saw that Paley used data in her classroom. She had different readings, the students' interpretations of the readings, and the different dynamics in the characters, the comparison of different characters, library research, and then also contacting Leoni. They got a little bit of feedback from him, and then also the research that was done on the author himself. Vivian Paley also talked about narrative continuity. And this is where they connected their book study to narrative continuity, reading a story that never ends and yet flows. So instead of reading one story, reading Frederick, talking about it and closing it, and then reading the Tico book and then continuing on, it was more like a dynamic of a continual story or a saga that was going on with all of these different books that the children were able to make connections and find commonalities and differences within the books. The action research that was done, so according to Mills 2011, cited in Mertler 2020, these are the 4 different stages of action research. Number 1 is identifying an area of focus. For this, the area of focus was Leoni's books. 2 was collecting data, and she did that through student observations, direct quotes, interviews with parents and assistant, and then also the artifacts, which would be the murals painted on the walls. The 3rd step is analyzing and interpreting the data, and this was done throughout the process and throughout the school year. And number 4 is where you develop a plan of action in the next steps. She actually had a conversation with the students on what to do with the posters, because towards the end of the school year, the students noticed that things were being taken down and put away. And they were wondering, like, well, what about the posters that we made? Because it was such an important aspect in their classroom. And the students were like, you guys can't, no, teachers don't take down the posters. They're important. They mean something. And what'll happen with the next year's students? And so, so the teachers said that they would leave up the posters, and then when the next year's students come in, they could share the stories and the experiences that the previous year had by looking at the posters. But something else that Vivian Paley was thinking was wondering, could she recreate this experience without having Renee in the classroom? Because Renee, the girl with the brown crayon, was such an asset to the development and the excitement of this book study. So this is something that I think as an adult we do. In a sense, it's what I'm doing right now currently in my action research class. We're all reading books by Vivian Gussin Paley. We're reading her books and discussing them and how they apply to our lives. If anyone here that is listening has ever read a Vivian Gussin Paley book, just go ahead and think about how the book that you read by Vivian Gussin Paley is similar to the one that I've just discussed, and how is it different? Because there's a lot of similarities whenever it comes to the books written by Vivian Gussin Paley, but each story is very unique. In my references. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.